This video will continue with the foundational 15 problem. And one thing to note is the third question is, what's the accounts receivable balance at the end of July? And we can find that from the schedule of expected cash collections. And the beginning balance for August would be the same as the ending balance for July. So there's the answer to question number 3. Now, we had question number 4 that says, according to the production budget, how many units should be produced in July? And we can see that on the production budget that we need to produce 10,400 units. Okay, so we want to construct here the raw materials budget, and we can see that it starts with the required production. So we link that up here to the production budget. And we only prepare these for the months where we have all the information that's necessary. Now, the raw materials required to produce 1 unit is an assumption that's at the top, line 13. And so if we multiply these two together, that creates our production needs. Okay. Now, the desired ending inventory in pounds is going to be calculated based on the next month's production needs. So for instance, July's needs are projected to be 52,000. And up at the top of the sheet, we have an assumption that says we want to have 10% of that amount available at the end of June. So we'll multiply July's production needs times the 10% assumption up here that says desired ending inventory of raw materials is 10% of the next month's production needs. And we'll only be able to calculate that for the next 2 months right now. So that means that our total needs are going to be these two added together. Okay. Now, we would have expected also that as we planned last month, we would have had 10% of our current month's production needs on hand. So we'll multiply the current month's production needs to get what we would have expected to have in beginning inventory. Now, this could also just be given as an assumption of the problem, but in this case it wasn't. So we'll have to assume that we would have met that 10% requirement. So we can see that what we're projecting for ending inventory in June, we expect to be the beginning inventory in July. And so we would take the total needs minus the beginning inventory to get the cost of materials to be purchased. Our cost of raw materials per pound is an assumption given at the top, $2, line 16. And so if we multiply our raw materials to be purchased times the cost per pound, we'll get the cost to be purchased. If we want to create our budgeted balance sheet later, we would need an ending balance for raw materials. And so if our ending balance is projected to be 5,200 in June, then we would expect that 5,200 times the cost, $2, would be the dollar amount that we'd record as the ending balance. Okay, so now we'll prepare our constructed expected cash payment schedule. And so what we'll see here is that for July, of the amount we purchase in July, we pay 30% in the current month and 70% in the following month. So for July, our purchases, of course, are on this line. So our first month purchases would be $105,800 times the 30%, because we pay 30% of the current month purchases. Second month purchases would be things that we pay for in July that we purchased in June. And we assume that we pay for 70% of June purchases in July. So we'll have the June purchases times 70%. So that means that the total cash disbursements for July are $93,956. Now, it turns out that's the only month where we can capture the entire total cash disbursement. So we're just filling out these budgets to the extent we can. What we do see is that the beginning accounts payable balance for August will be what's left over of the materials to be purchased in July. So that would be the July purchases times 70%, because 70% is paid in the month following the purchase. So if we look at the foundational 15 questions, it asks here, how many pounds of raw materials should be purchased in July? And we see that that's 52,900. What is the estimated cost of raw materials purchased for July? And so that's 105,800. And we see that cost of materials purchased in June is 88,880, which is given also here in question 7. But that says, what are the total estimated cash disbursements for raw materials purchases in July? And we see that that's 93,956. We also see that the ending accounts payable balance in July, or the beginning for August, is 74,060. And in fact, that was question 8. The estimated raw materials inventory balance at the end of July is 12,200. So we're starting to answer several of the questions here in this problem. All right, so the next video will continue with the direct labor budget and the unit product cost.